here we go. We got the professional Hearthstone player, and his struggling marriage has a happy ending, but we don't get it yet. So this is Seeping. Old school, vet, 7 years ago. This guy's been at it longer than me, and he was the only guy on the Married Red Pill who had 100,000 people feeding him shit tests, and he managed to blow all that through. He didn't really care. Wife, 3 kids, the works. Basically decided, nope, my Red Pill journey is more important than all these blathering Redditors. Took all of it in stride. Marriage has been better for it ever since. Tons of stories from this guy. I should almost make an entire series on it. So he's like, I tuck the kids in, go down to the living room, wife's on her smartphone. I move her in, move her limbs a bit, take her phone away, go for a kiss. She fights me, I continue. She doesn't budge, but seems annoyed. So I shrug, go to the kitchen. She calls after me, where are you going? He's like, I'm getting food. I get some food, go to the sofa, have a book. She says, why am I not with her? I say, I want to read without the TV distracting me. A few minutes later, she walks over, sits on top of him. She's smiling, talks nicely. Tries to say something about acting offended. He's like, I'd been cool. The only thing I did was walk out and not return to the TV room. I'm like, you're reading too much into this, babe. I wanted to be with you. You didn't want that, so I went to read. If you notice there, textbook, how to deal with rejections. Just find something better to do. She has right of first refusal of your attention. So she tries to explain something, claustrophobic, blah, blah, blah. He's like, whatever. She was either annoyed I interrupted her Facebook time, or it was a shit test I failed. He's like, I don't care. I said that's how I wanted it. I said otherwise I'd like to read. So now I want to read. Thinks a bit, asks what I'm thinking. And he's like, or what are you reading? And he's like, Stoicism. The book I'm reading is about Stoicism. Talked for it a bit, says out of the blue. I think I like it best when I get to reject you first and then we have sex. So I tease her a bit with that. And she liked it when I ignored her. She denies it, but she went upstairs and then we had sex. A little bit of, what do you call these are soft rejections. You guys talk about soft rejections and hard rejections. Soft rejections are just where a girl, it's almost like the equivalent of a single person getting last minute resistance. They just want to have the other person fight for it a little bit, because that's the part they enjoy. So he sent her away so we can read. 30 minutes later, she's ready for bed. And she calls him. It's like, hey, do you want to come up and say goodnight? She goes to bed 2 hours before him. He goes up. We lay down in bed, talk about stuff. I can't remember the order. Plenty about friends. She's saying, oh, we're having sex tomorrow. So we kiss a little bit. He's like, yeah, it was pretty passionate. More so in a long time. So I smiled lovingly afterwards. She warns me not to ignore her, compliments me a few times. And after 10 minutes, I say goodnight and leave. It's like, any updates on this? So I'll put in here, he gives a couple updates on the scenario from like the next day, so realize nobody knows these parts yet. She woke me up the next morning with a kiss. I went for work. She said he was very sweet. He's like, is that the beta description? What the fuck? Gave a long kiss. The 10-second kiss, by the way, is from Athel K. So that's why he's making an effort to mention this one here. Texted him from work about picking up the kids and entered with, kiss, kiss, my hot husband. So she's laying it on pretty thick. Update 2, she had a work thing planned. Meant I have to skip judo to watch the kids. During the day, she texts me she's going to skip it to get home so you can make it to judo. She does that stuff when she's trying to be nice. So I'm like, no, your networking tonight. Then coming home to get dick. I'll lift tomorrow. So later in the sofa, he gets a minor shit test, segues into a blowjob. And it's funny, it's just like, this is like general push-pull from the relationship. And there's a lot of shit tests, more than a guy should normally get. Because he's only just started passing them. And so it seems like, why is there all this like, would I, will I not? He's being assertive, he's finding himself better things to do, and then eventually it works out for him, but you're like, that's an awful lot of work from a married 5 with 2 kids or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's the game. Until you have the game internalized, you're going to be having a lot of stupid dances like this. So one thing I will say is it's great. Red Discover 3, just some random, no idea who he is, never seen him since, and he's like, during that first rejection, he's like, I would have just slept with her. Because he's like, I got the vibe from that you were trying to teach her a lesson. Don't do that. Girls are like dogs in that way. And I don't mean that girls are dogs. Dogs are wonderful. I mean it in the sense that if you have this image in your head of teaching somebody a lesson by withholding sex from them, that works when chicks do it towards thirsty guys. It doesn't work towards girls. They don't catch the message. It's the same thing as like yelling at your dog. Get over here when he's into something, and the dog doesn't come because he doesn't think that you're mad at him for being in trouble, for like sniffing this other dog's butt. He just knows that guy's yelling, so I'm not going over there. He's going to hit me. So it turns out if you want your dog to stop messing around, you have to be the most fun thing around, and that dog will come to you. Same thing here. His attempts at like teaching his wife a lesson. Now, don't get me wrong. His rejection to go read the book was a good call, but it's a good point to bring up aside from that, and understanding the difference between valuing your time and teaching that bitch a lesson for turning you down. It's one of those important things for a guy to learn. So Jack 10 of Hearts, prolific poster, du jour, chimes in. That's a pretty unalpha day. I can see what you mean. When I have a day like this is when I'm playing chauffeur and coaching Little League and returning shit at Home Depot. I'll text my wife something like, it's hot as hell. I'm going to need a shower after this. You down? And he sees himself as harvesting alpha seeds, gym, career, hobbies. And these texts are a way of planting those seeds. The tiniest bit of anticipation makes a big difference with my wife when I try to contextualize shit between super dad and the super sexy alpha husband. 6-pack abs, 6 feet tall, and 6 figures income, or they will never get a date. And when he brings up when she was talking about like all the bullshit excuses about, oh, she was claustrophobic when he went over, and she's like, yeah, I suspect this, claustrophobic comment has more to do with the context shift I described above. Kind of like a, whoa, where is this coming from? And this was really anti-sexy day for us, which I know is how a lot of days will be with 2 young kids. So if you want to have a sex day on an anti-sex day, you should mitigate that as much as possible. And that kind of goes without saying. You have to realize that, girls don't warm up instantly. So sometimes it's just dropping these little hints. If you want to see more on this, see my video a previous couple back about separating sex from intimacy. Stuff like that goes a long way. But again, we didn't know that then. We know it now. And now you do. He brought up the point where she was saying, like, I want to reject you first and then have sex. So as other commenters pointed out, that's a pretty awful statement, but given she seemed eager to have sex after this, and in general seems affectionate and warm towards you, I'm going to give this a charitable interpretation. I think I like it best when I get to reject you first, and then you show me what I'm missing, and then I get to chase after you and we have sex. Or, I really don't like it when you take me for granted, because that's pretty much what happens from the sound of it. You have better things to do than stare at your TV while your wife scrolls through the latest BuzzFeed article. You made that very clear. Jack's sitting here. He looks at the other quotes like, yeah, I just don't like the idea. And I didn't read this because it was like, skipping through a lot of the same. But I dislike the idea that she can just charm her way back into my good side. She should learn to put her phone away. It's like, look, red pill is not cognitive behavioral therapy anything. What you are doing is pretty much weaponizing sex yourself. Your wife declined sex because she felt like doing something else instead of sex. Sure, not great, but sure. And then you consciously decided to decline her for sex because of how you felt. So I hope you realize that you're not going to condition your wife to put away her phone by declining sex any more than she'd condition you to do anything by declining sex. And of course, 30 minutes later, she's ready for bed and calls. If I come, and yeah, you're going to come up and say goodnight? And then apparently she goes to bed 2 hours before him, and he's like, and then there's this. When she desires your affection later, you willingly give it to her. If you want to send a message to your wife that it's unacceptable to play with her phone and then want sex, this is a rather odd way to do it. So really, I just wonder, while you were laying in bed and kissing and all that, why didn't you just throw a fuck into her while you were at it, since it seems like she was pretty receptive at that point. So the takeaway from this one is calibration. No guy's going to get this stuff perfectly. I don't care how tough you talk on the internet. Every guy has to do these little, and I don't want to call them negotiations because they're not. They're just observations. In fact, the greatest example of what this is called an OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. When you get a chance, go through this field report again, go through the stuff I've just said, and approach it from an OODA perspective. Observe what's happening, orient yourself towards the situation, make a decision on how to move forward at your own best interest, and then make an action on it. And if you can repeat that faster and faster and faster, you're able to make better decisions quicker. And that's essentially the difference between a guy who can sort out his stuff in 6 months versus a guy who's still starting from square one after 2 years. How fast can you perform these loops? How fast do you learn from your mistakes? It should be easy because there's a shit ton of field reports. So you're able to go through and read a guy's stuff and know all of this. So yeah, on this one, a couple concepts. Don't reward bad behavior. Don't weaponize sex. Don't take a soft rejection as a hard rejection. If you can keep those 3 things in mind, little situations like this will go great. And instead of just like, yeah, I got blown the next day, and yeah, we kind of fooled around, but there was a lot of butthurt earlier, and I read the book. It could have just been, 3 smash sessions in a week and a blowy. It's like, how bad do you want it, I guess, is the big question here. But yeah, just keep your feelings out of it. As soon as you start acting butthurt and start thinking that you can teach her a lesson, that's where shit goes downhill. And you just don't want to do that because you're not fighting with her because she's not your arch nemesis. Just think about that. You made some frumpy soccer mom your arch nemesis, and you choose to fight them with underhanded Machiavellian techniques. It's like, what message is that sending? Who's the better one in this situation? Again, you don't have to do a lot. Sometimes just having something better to do. A lot of guys are like, if your wife turns you down, go cheat on her. Well, sometimes it's as much as just going to read a book quietly. That can be enough. A little can go a long way. Who'da thunk? Especially if she actually likes you. So take that for what it's worth. You might want to watch this one once or twice. A few guys watch these things multiple times, and it's kind of funny, the little things you pick up. So I'll leave you to it. Don't forget, like, subscribe. You know the deal, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Cheers.